Rachel clutched her purse tighter as she hurried across the crowded city plaza, her heels clicking against the pavement. The wind tugged at her blazer and her stomach growled after a long, exhausting job interview. She hadn't eaten all day, and her feet ached from walking. All she wanted was to grab a quick lunch and get home. As she passed a street corner, a voice called out softly, "Excuse me, miss, do you have anything to eat?" She stopped. A man sat on the sidewalk with a worn backpack beside him and a cardboard sign that read, "Hungry but hopeful." His clothes were old, but his eyes looked calm and kind. Rachel gave a short laugh and shook her head. "Get a job," she muttered under her breath, rolling her eyes as she turned away. She didn't look back. The man didn't chase her or say anything else. He just lowered his head. To Rachel, he was just another lazy stranger looking for a handout. What she didn't know was that she'd see him again, very soon. And everything she thought she knew about him would turn upside down. Rachel had always believed that people ended up on the streets because they didn't try hard enough. That's what her parents used to say when she was growing up. Work hard, stay clean, and you'll never have to beg. Her father often told her, so Rachel worked hard. She studied late into the night, took student loans, juggled 2 part-time jobs in college, and never asked anyone for help. She was proud of that. Now at 28, she was chasing the next big step, a better job, a bigger apartment, a life she could show off on social media. Image mattered to her. The clothes she wore, the people she knew, the places she ate, they all told a story. She wanted that story to be perfect. The man on the sidewalk didn't fit that story. His clothes were patched and faded. His hands were rough, fingers stained with dirt. He looked about 50, maybe older, with gray in his beard and deep lines around his eyes. But there was something in his expression that didn't match the rest of him. Something calm, steady, almost wise. Still, Rachel didn't care to look closer. In her eyes, he was just another man who'd given up. Another person waiting for someone else to fix his problems. But the man had a story too. A long one. A heavy one. And unlike Rachel's, no one ever asked to hear it. It was a chilly Thursday afternoon in late October. The sky hung low with gray clouds and a cold breeze swept through the city streets. People were bundled in coats and scarves, hurrying from one place to another. Downtown was always busy, cars honking, voices rising, music playing from street performers near the park entrance. Rachel had just come out of a glass office tower, where she'd interviewed for a marketing position. The interview had gone okay, not great, not terrible. She was tired from pretending to be cheerful and confident for over an hour. Her stomach twisted with hunger and nerves. She crossed the plaza near the subway entrance, passing a row of food trucks. The smell of grilled onions and fried dough filled the air. That's when she saw him, the homeless man sitting on the corner with his sign. All around him, people walked by without slowing down. Some looked away. Others glanced at him like he was invisible. Rachel barely noticed him until he spoke. That corner was just another part of the city to her. A place she passed through. But for the man on the ground, it was his daily spot, a small space in a big world where he waited quietly, hoping someone might stop. Someone rarely did. Rachel didn't laugh because the man said something funny. She laughed because she thought he was ridiculous. In her mind, people like him didn't try hard enough. She believed the world didn't owe anyone a living, and if someone really wanted to change their life, they could. After all, she had done it. At least, that's what she told herself. She remembered the nights she stayed up studying for college exams while working evening shifts at a coffee shop. She remembered skipping meals to save money. She didn't grow up rich, she made sacrifices. That's how she got where she was. So when the man asked her for food, something inside her snapped. Not because he asked, but because he reminded her of everything she fought against: weakness, dependence, failure. She went into a small sandwich shop across the street and ordered a turkey panini. As she waited, she opened her phone and typed a short post on her story. People need to stop asking for handouts and start looking for help. Wanted signs. SMH. She added a laughing emoji at the end. No one knew who she was talking about, but it made her feel better, like she had the last word. She sat by the window, took a bite of her sandwich, and glanced across the street. The man hadn't moved. He was still sitting there, still waiting, still hoping. That evening, the wind picked up and the rain finally started to fall. Rachel curled up on her couch with a blanket and the rest of her sandwich, flipping through channels on her TV. Her phone buzzed with likes and replies to her earlier post. Some people agreed with her. Others didn't. She didn't care. She stopped on the local news. A breaking story flashed across the screen. Former war hero found living on city streets. Rachel froze. The reporter stood outside a small shelter just a few blocks from where she'd been earlier. The screen cut to video of a man being helped into the building, wearing the same clothes, holding the same worn backpack. It was him. The same man who had asked her for food. The one she laughed at. Her heart skipped. The anchor's voice filled the silence. Today, a man known only as John was brought in by volunteers after living on the streets for over 5 years. What many didn't know, until today, is that John served as a military medic overseas and received multiple honors for saving lives in combat. Rachel leaned forward. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The story continued. After returning home, he lost his wife and daughter in a tragic car crash. Struggling with grief and PTSD, he withdrew from everyone. He vanished. No one knew where he went, until now. The camera zoomed in on the man's face. Even through the screen, his eyes looked tired, but kind. Exactly the way she remembered. Rachel felt her chest tighten. The sandwich in her hand suddenly tasted like nothing. Her stomach turned. The man she laughed at wasn't lazy. He was a hero. And she had walked right past him, like he was nothing. The news segment continued, but Rachel barely heard it. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen, watching the story unfold like something out of a movie. But it wasn't a movie. It was real. And she had been part of it. The reporter interviewed a nurse from a local hospital. We worked together during the relief efforts overseas. He was the first one into danger and the last one to leave. He saved more people than I can count, she said, holding back tears. We thought he was dead. Another clip showed photos of him in uniform, standing tall, smiling beside helicopters, arms around fellow soldiers. Then there was a photo of him holding a little girl in his arms. His daughter. The next photo was a candlelight vigil with the words "In memory of Emily and Claire." Beneath it, Rachel felt something deep inside her shift. The story went on to explain how volunteers had recently noticed the man sitting quietly on the same street corner, day after day. They offered him food, clothes, and eventually convinced him to come to the shelter. At first he said no, but when one of the volunteers recognized him from an old newspaper photo, everything changed. Donations started pouring in once the story aired. Local groups offered housing and therapy. Veterans reached out, calling him a forgotten brother. Social media lit up with hashtags like #help, John and #hidden heroes. Rachel turned off the TV and sat in silence. She couldn't stop thinking about his eyes. The way he looked at her, not with anger, not with pity, just calm. Like he'd seen worse, and wasn't surprised by her reaction. She remembered her laughter. The look on his face when she walked away. Now that moment haunted her. Not because he turned out to be someone important, but because he was always someone important, and she never took the time to see it. Rachel couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face. Not the face from the news, but the one from earlier that day. The one she laughed at. The one she ignored. She replayed it again and again. Her voice. Her tone. The way she rolled her eyes. It made her feel sick. The next morning, Rachel sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. She didn't bother fixing her hair or putting on makeup. She stared at the screen for a long time before opening a blank post. Then slowly she started typing. Yesterday, I laughed at a man who asked me for food. I assumed he was lazy. I assumed he was nothing. Last night I found out he was a decorated veteran who lost his family and gave everything for people like me. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. She hesitated, then hit post. Within hours it started spreading. People commented with their own stories, times they judged too quickly, people they misunderstood. Some thanked her for being honest. Others reminded her that growth starts with truth. Rachel didn't write the post for attention. She wrote it because she needed to say it. Later that week, she found the fundraiser for the shelter and donated. Not just money, but time. She signed up to volunteer every Saturday. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't post pictures. She just showed up. She started to listen more, to watch more carefully, to look people in the eye, especially the ones the world walked past. Weeks passed. Rachel continued volunteering at the shelter, working with the people she had once looked down on. She served meals, sorted donations, and helped with paperwork. Slowly, the people there became more than just faces. She learned their stories, their struggles, their dreams. And somewhere along the way, her heart began to shift. But there was one person she hadn't seen since that day at the plaza, the man from the news, the one who had been a hero. The one she had judged so harshly. Rachel hadn't forgotten him though. She thought about him constantly, even as she worked at the shelter. What happened to him? Was he getting the help he needed? Was he still living in the shelter, or had he moved into one of the homes the community had set up for veterans? One chilly afternoon, as Rachel was finishing her shift, she noticed a crowd gathering near the entrance. She walked over, curiosity tugging at her. As she approached, she saw him. The man was standing in front of a microphone on a small stage, dressed in a suit that looked brand new, though it was still a bit big on him. His beard was neatly trimmed, his hair combed. He looked different, but still those same kind eyes. He was giving a speech to a packed room of volunteers, donors, and veterans. Rachel stood near the back, hesitant to get too close. She didn't want to interrupt. But then he saw her. His eyes met hers from across the room, and he smiled. Gently. Recognizing her, but saying nothing. Rachel's heart fluttered in her chest. She wanted to apologize, to say the words that had been hanging on the tip of her tongue for weeks. But something stopped her. He didn't need to hear it from her. As he spoke into the microphone, his voice was steady. Powerful. Everyone has a story. Don't judge the chapter you walked in on. His words rang out, clear and strong. The crowd responded with applause, but Rachel didn't hear the noise. She was lost in his words. He wasn't angry with her, he didn't need to be. But she needed to hear that. She needed to understand. She stayed at the back of the room, watching as he spoke about hope, healing, and second chances. And when the speech ended, and everyone clapped, she stayed there, letting the moment settle inside her. The applause echoed through the room, but Rachel couldn't hear it. She only heard the soft rhythm of her own breath, steady and deep, as she stood there watching him. His speech had touched something inside her, something she hadn't expected. There, in that room full of strangers, Rachel felt a quiet shift in herself. She knew she would never forget that moment. The look in his eyes when they locked, his quiet smile that spoke of forgiveness, strength, and wisdom far beyond what she'd imagined. When the crowd began to disperse, Rachel stayed behind, not knowing what she was waiting for. But then he walked toward her, as calm as ever, his footsteps slow and deliberate. "You came," he said softly, his voice warm but not forced. "Thank you for being here." Rachel swallowed, feeling the weight of everything she had been carrying, the guilt, the shame, and the small flame of hope that had been growing in her heart. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. He nodded, his eyes kind. "We all make mistakes," he said. "The important thing is what we do after." Rachel nodded back, tears welling in her eyes. She didn't have to say anything more. She understood now. She wasn't the same person who had laughed at him. She would never be that person again. And for the first time in a long while, Rachel believed in second chances, not just for others, but for herself. If you found this story moving, don't forget to like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. We all make judgments sometimes, but it's never too late to change. Comment below and let us know how this story touched you. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us to look deeper and live with compassion.